All right, hey, so we're gonna look at some plyometrics today, or really just try to understand the base concept behind plyometrics, because what we're looking at, right, plyo, so really look at that root word, right, turns into like pliable. When we're looking at plyometrics, what we're really trying to get after, what we're really trying to work on or improve towards is making tendons pliable, or making them reactive to different stimuli, right? Now, when we look at how tendons react, when we look at how they function, basically they function as attaching a muscle to the bone. So when we create stretch shortening cycles, and when we look at that, basically going from a muscular contraction of eccentric, isometric, and concentric, that stretch shortening cycle, a lot of the tendon can store that potential energy, right? Think about your tendons as big rubber bands, okay? Now, when we look at trying to develop the way that that rubber band gets stronger, when we look at trying to increase our efficiency, whether it's sprinting, whether it's jumping, whether it's being explosive, what we have to understand is that we can basically do this, and what we're trying to actually do is create stiffness, okay? One of the ways that we can do this, right, a very low level plyometric that a lot of people are very familiar with, jumping rope, right? That rhythm, being able to move up and down, is creating this rhythm of, or this stiffness in your Achilles tendon, right? And we can do this with different tendons across the body. When we look at plyometrics, one of the things we want to see is creating fast, rapid, short contractions that are going to work in that stretch shortening cycle. So we're going to use that jump rope analogy here because we can apply it across the body. But being able to understand, if I am going to load my Achilles tendon, I really want to create a very contracted calf and allow my feet to move. Now, if I'm in this position, just hopping up and down, what you see is that at the moment of impact, my Achilles stretches out, that potential energy is stored and it's reapplied into the ground. When we create stiffness, when we create some of that tension, we start to build a stronger tendon. Now, what happens though, and this is where you see Achilles snapping, this is where you see tendon injuries, tendonitis, is overdoing the frequency of our plyometrics. So when we look at trying to put these in a program, we're looking at starting low, starting with baseline contractions. So, right there, that example was a low pogo, jumping rope, same thing. This is considered a low level plyometric. Now, the higher level, the more we go up, the more intense they are. So it takes a longer time to recover. And so when we look at putting these in a program, we start with higher number of ground contacts and lower intensity. So if I were to say jump rope, I could have anywhere between 75 and 300 ground contacts. But the higher I get, if I were to say do higher pogos and get up off the ground, trying to create as much stiffness, then I start to look at lowering my ground contacts. Same thing if I were to do a hurdle hop, anything where I'm really increasing the height that I'm falling and the height that I'm rebounding, we start to then decrease our volume. Part of that's to decrease injury, part of that is to increase just the ability to then recover from those different mechanisms. So that's kind of a base overview of plyometrics. You can do that across the whole system. You can do it with upper body, with it's like push-up pulses, something like that. Being able to then apply those forces to make tendons more pliable, make them perform a little bit better, because then we can use those reactive little contractions as stretch shortening cycle to then translate to sprinting, jumping, performing on and off the field, and also just feeling better. So just a brief overview of plyometrics for you, just kind of a little dive into the baseline of it, just so you kind of chew on, think on, and try out in your training.